Gowish. Cool. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. We are from a tiny little game company called Secret Lab. We make games for the iPhone, iPad. My name is John.
I'm Paris.
Yeah. This is the part where we convince you that we're worth listening to. We have written a couple of books in this area. We wrote iPhone, iPad Game Dev for Dummies. We've written Learning Cocoa with Objective-C, and we're about to come up with a new book called iOS Game Dev Cookbook. We have done a couple of things that you might have heard of. We made the ABC Play School Art Maker, which was released at the end of 2011 and got rave reviews. We have a new game coming out in the next month or so, which is a kids' educational game. And so basically we're going to be using both our experiences and also a bit of formal knowledge to talk about game design and gameplay mechanics. So the things that we'll actually be doing over the course of the next hour and a half, we'll be looking at a formal framework for looking at game design called mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics. Has anybody here heard of that before? Not you, Tim. We'll also be looking at, we'll be playing games, analysing them, and making changes to them. So there'll be a lot of thinking. You will almost entirely be working in groups. Now you can move around if you already don't like your fellow tablemates, and that's fine. You can move around. What I found is it tends to be most rewarding if you work with people that you don't know really well. So feel free to sit with your friends, but you might get more at us if you don't. So up to you. Here's a few things that we will not be doing. We will not be doing any programming. We'll not be learning how to use a game engine or how to get a job as a game designer. In fact, we won't even be using computers at all. Well, we'll be using one computer, the one that you're born with. We'll be going from now until about 3:45. Please, just as a matter of courtesy, turn your laptops, phones, faxes, Walkmans off, just because any time that you get distracted from what you're doing with your group, then that can just lead to the whole thing breaking down. So, over the course of this little workshop, your goal will be to fail as fast as you humanly can. Most of the workshop is about modifying existing games, and so your job will be to make changes and to test those changes as rapidly as possible. So you should spend as little time as possible thinking about what changes you're going to make, and more time testing whatever changes you've come up with so far. So don't spend hours debating the whole thing. The only way to test your stuff is actually play the game. Now, your first attempts are going to be not great. This is okay. In fact, it's good because it lets you discover what you don't like about your work. Then you can make a change, then repeat. So just try something and see how it goes. So I mentioned before that we're going to be basing this off a formal framework for looking at games. And this is, as I mentioned, mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics. It was written by Mark LeBlanc, Robin Hunicke, and I forget his first name, Zubek. That's actually his name. And this isn't the only framework that exists for talking about games. There's other ones. Dan Norton wrote a framework called Roles vs. Goals. Jesse Schell, who's most famous for his book, The Art of Game Design, broke it down into elementary tetrad of story, mechanics, aesthetics, and technology. There's the split between narratology and ludology. There's so many different perspectives for looking at gameplay and game design. We're going to look at one of them. It isn't the only one. It isn't even the best one. But that'll be up to you to decide. So, let's talk about games. How is a game different from other kinds of media that we consume? So by media, I'm talking about television, I'm talking about films, books, music. Well, as you've already read on the slide, games are unpredictable. When you watch a movie, it's the same movie every time. But a game will change based on what the player does. So you can't say, Super Mario Brothers, I know exactly how the game plays, because it'll differ based on the player. So the player's choice impacts on what it does. Now, what choices that are available to the player are created by the game's designer. The game's designer says, Mario can jump. The player can pick up a gun. The player can change direction while they're doing their racing game. So those choices are defined by the creator of the game. What kind of choices are we talking about here? different games, of course, have different rules, and different rules lead to different choices. Oh, good, it hasn't been cut off. So the game of chess, for example, if you overly simplify the rules, you can break it down into three main factors. Players take turns moving pieces around a game board. Each piece has a different rule for moving around, how it moves, and pieces can capture other pieces. That's chess at its fundamental level. The game of chasings, or tag, or it's otherwise called, has two rules. One player is it, and if the it player touches another player, that player becomes it. So, again, very simple rules. Modern video games tend to have much more complex rules. Things about how fast you can run, and what different items you can pick up, and what happens when you get to a certain place. There's often like AI that will try and shoot at you, depending on the type of game. So, different games, of course, have different rules, but modern video games tend to be much more complex than these other two games. That doesn't necessarily mean that the choices are better or they're better games, just that they have more rules. Now, these kinds of constraints that we put upon the player, we call mechanics. So a mechanic is a definition of what the player does in the context of the game. Now, we could just say rules, but really mechanic's a better word, because a mechanic is a description of how the system functions. And the player interacts with these systems, and gameplay happens as a result. So one of the mechanics, for example, in chasings is when I touch another person, that person becomes it. That's a mechanic. Dynamics happen as a result of those mechanics. So say, for example, we have a thermostat. It's got two rules, two mechanics. If the temperature is above 72 degrees Fahrenheit, I most recently presented this in the States, so apologies for not putting it in Celsius. If the temperature is above 72 degrees, then turn on the air conditioner. And if it's below 72 degrees Fahrenheit, turn on the heater. So when it gets hot, turn on the air conditioner. When it gets cold, turn on the heater. Now, if you have these rules, over time, the temperature of the room, if you plot it on a graph, it would look like this, where it would be cold, heater goes on, so temperature goes up. Now it's too hot, air conditioner goes on, so temperature goes down. And over time it will settle at that sweet spot of that roughly 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Now this is a pattern that we call negative feedback, and it's probably a term that you might have heard in other contexts as well. So, as you can see, mechanics group together, and behavior happens as a result. So let's talk about games then. I mentioned before tag, chasing. The two rules, just go over them again. The goal of the game is to not be it, and when the player who is it touches you, you are it. Now, if we think about the consequences of these rules, if I'm it, I know that I don't want to be it because the rule says that. The goal of the game is to not be it. So I will try and touch someone and make them be it. That means I will approach them. If I'm not it, I want to stay away from that person. So already you can see one person moving towards another who flees. So chasing isn't actually in the rules of tag. Tag just says you got to touch someone, and everything else happens as a result. Here's a more abstract example. Consider a game in which players can earn some points and can also cause other players to lose points. Now, this could be a racing game, or it could be a shooting game, or it could be any kind of game. You can earn points and you can make other people lose points. And if you also have a rule saying that the winner is the first person to get 10 points, then what's going to happen is people will fight amongst themselves, getting points, and then the person who is the closest to winning, everyone's going to realize, oh, this person's got to win and end the game. I want to win, so we'll all team up and take him down. Now again, the rules don't say you should do that, but it's going to happen anyway. So that's a dynamic. Now, dynamics have effects on players. So in the game of tag, it's a really good example because it's a really primitive, low-level game. The it player is chasing you because they don't want to be it. And this will make you feel really, really hunted. You know, there's a really primal thing going on there. You know, there's this predator coming after us and I don't want to be food. So very base level brainstem stuff. Whereas if you're it, then you're chasing the players, which means you're hunting, you're gathering food for your tribe in the cave. So these are aesthetics. These are ways that the game makes you feel. games always have an aesthetic impact on the player. If you're playing a game of racing cars, then it's a game of pursuit at its core level. If you're playing a role-playing game, then it's a game of exploration and discovery. So, Mark LeBlanc, who came up with this framework, identified 8 kinds of fun, 8 aesthetics that I'll quickly talk about. There's the aesthetic of sensation, that is, you play a game because it's pleasurable to experience it. For example, if you're playing a really pretty game, like wonderful colours, lush rendering, etc., then you're playing it regardless of the gameplay. It looks nice, and you like navigating that space. Gamers make-believe, escapism. You get to be a knight in shining armor, or you get to be a scuba diver. Stuff that you wouldn't normally get to do in day-to-day life. Narrative, game's unfolding story. So this is a fairly easy to grasp concept. The game is telling you a story, and as you play, it reveals more to you. Challenge, game's obstacle course. So puzzle games are often like this, where you have a fixed set of puzzles, and they're in your way, and it feels good to solve them. Fellowship game is a social framework. That is, it's fun to team up with people. It's really, really enjoyable to play a team-based game because you're working together and there's this social thing going on between you. Regardless of whether it's two teams versus each other or a group of people versus the computer, it still feels good. Discovery game is uncharted territory. You get a lot of pleasure out of discovering stuff that you hadn't seen before. Expression game is soapbox. A lot of creative games. Minecraft is amazing at this because it feels good to make stuff that you've made. And also submission game is mindless pastime, where you don't really want to think about stuff. You just want to do some clicking. Farmville, for all of its faults, is amazing at this because you don't have to think, and that's fine. You don't have to be committed to the game and really thinking through strategies in certain games. It's totally fun. So, arguably, an aesthetic is what we're really talking about when we are looking for a definition of fun. Now, that's a really contentious statement. People have been trying to define what fun is for decades. This is mine. So when you're out shopping for a game, you often, at some level, you're thinking, I want to find a game that makes me feel like I'm working in a team, or I'm looking for a game that will make me feel really powerful. Witness, for example, the popularity of the Call of Duty games. That's all about a power fantasy. So, here's a quick summary of that crash course in the Mechanics, Dynamics, Aesthetics framework. A designer creates mechanics. Those mechanics combine to create dynamics, that is, player behavior. And dynamics, the behavior, have aesthetic effects on players. Now, players see this whole setup quite differently to how designers see it. So, when you're a developer, you make the mechanics, that has dynamics, then aesthetics happen as well. From the player's perspective, they get the aesthetics first because, they fire the whole thing up and then suddenly intro sequence and music and everything's happening to them, like the game is being directed at them and they're going to get an effect first. They won't work out the mechanics of why it's happening until half an hour of play. So, players experience a game via the aesthetics, whereas a designer is thinking up how the game rules are going to work first. You have to work that out first because that's your starting point. Any questions on this so far? I'm guessing no? Cool. So to talk about how this actually works in practice, we're going to play a game. You have a deck of cards in front of you. Everybody should have a little deck of cards. We're going to play a game called Sissyfight 3000. Sissyfight 3000 is a game that is a simulation of a playground fight between little kids. The goal of the game is to reduce your opponent's self-esteem, breaking them completely. All right, because the kids are vicious. Here are the rules. Each player has a deck of 15 cards. This is one of the many you're holding right now. This deck of cards is 10 target cards. They're the ones with the colours, so grey, white, purple, orange, red, etc.
Also no target.
Yep. Next one is a no target card. So that's there as well. There are 3 action cards as well, and we'll talk about what they are.
Do you have extra cards or missing cards? Just wait until we finish the run through and give them to you.
Yep. So you have 3 action cards. one defend card, one solo attack card, and one team attack card. You also have a 15th card, which is just a quick summary of the rules. You also have a stack of 10 Monopoly money dollar bills, and that represents your self-esteem. You have, because as we know, money is intimately linked to self-esteem, and so that's basically, you can think of that as your hit points or your life or your tokens, however you want to think about it. You have 10 of them. Sorry, 5 of them. Should be 5. Here's how the game plays out. You first, in secret on your own, choose an action card to play and a target card to play. So you choose, for example, red solo attack, for example. Now, you can plot and scheme with other players, but your final decision, the actual decision of which cards you're going to play, has to be secret. All communication that you make in your table has to be public. You're not allowed to whisper to other people. So you can gang up, but you have to say that you're ganging up. Then everybody at the same time reveals their action and target cards. So you pick your cards out and then you get to count to 3 and then flip all at the same time. Then actions get resolved. So let's talk about the actions. The first action to talk about is the solo attack card. Now the solo attack card is very simple. Your target loses $1.
One self-esteem.
Yeah, one self-esteem point, one token, one chip.
Chips.
Yeah. The other attack card is the team attack. This is more complicated. When you play this card, your target will discard $2. They'll lose 2 self-esteem points, but only if 2 players or more use team attack. So it has to be done in a team. You can't do team attack on your own. So for example, if 2 players use team attack, that target then discards $4. $2 for each team attack. So it's a really powerful card, but you have to do it as part of a team. It has no effect if only one person uses it, okay? The third action card is defend. Now, because the rules say you have to pick a target and an action, defend actually works on yourself, so you choose the no target card. So you play defend card and no target, and the way that it works is you lose half as many dollars as you would have, rounded down. So say someone attacks you with a solo attack, you play defend, that means 0.5, round down to 0, you take no damage. Okay? However, if you play defend and nobody attacked you, then you lose $1. Okay? When you run out of money, then you're out of the game. When 1 or 2 people are left, they win. So you can have 2 winners in the game. We're going to play until 3 p.m. just with the standard rules there. So if you have any questions on how to play, then we'll come.
To set up, you each need to pick a colour out of the deck.
Yes.
And then you put that colour in front of you to be your colour, and then the other player will use that colour to attack you. You've obviously got more colours than there are people in some of the teams, so just take those cards out of the deck once you figure out which colour you're using. So if you're missing any money, you should each have 5. All cards can't appear on So put it front of you so you can see what colour you want. Pick your colour for yourself. So if you're green player, for example, you pick the colour. Don't forget to remove the cards. We need to be face down so the target is played with the defender. How much do we need each? 5. Yeah. To make it easier, as Harris just mentioned, for teams, for tables where there's fewer than 10 players, which I think is all of you, you can take the cards that don't actually represent other players and put them aside. This team here has no yellow players, so you can all take the yellow cards and put them aside. Because otherwise you have more cards in your hand, you might move. First, obviously, we can all get through the cool. Alright. that's fine. Wrong, so grab the file.
Black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, So we need to keep black. We need to keep that.
Okay, losing the that's fine because you've got the remaining order.
Yeah, exactly.
So you should be just starting quick. So do you have to take out quick time?
So we don't go to the so I'll move.
So we choose the time. Okay, right.
So that was you always play two cards. Yeah. That way it's no one can see all the cards. So orange
So you guys can get silver save points back. There you go. Just one.
That's interesting. Surprise everyone. Would you like to take it? Here we go. Kill myself.
Is someone out already?
Okay,
Yeah, it's team attack. Why can we get team attack orange and start everyone going? Maybe out of the No, but the best thing to do is defend these other ones. Team attack's also all out team attack.
okay, this one. What happens in that one? Anyone else that wants to do team attack? Everybody ready? Yes, I know.
You're probably close to maybe halfway through the game. When you finish the game, start again. Keep playing the game until 3 p.m.
I'm trying to do that.
No, you can imply.
I don't know.
Actually, yeah. So basically,
all we team titles.
I don't understand. That's your planning stuff. So Steve.
Somebody attacking the other people, man. That's what stop wasting your time.
It's a similar family. No, big fan.
Question, who's on the second game?
Waiting for the second guy. Come on! You guys can't people out. Yeah, that's fine.
Not attacking.
But not attacking would be guaranteed. But if we were team attack, we would come.
We did figure that by defending no one's down.
Are you noticing this? Situation where
Scott, would you like a Scott, you're with me. I'm trying to run the 3 minute off. I said no, this time it's mechanic code. Please,
Team attack on. Oh, sorry.
You could have had self-esteem and things like that. We have yellow, orange.
Yellow, destroy yellow. That's why
This time, we mean
Okay, so what do we just go?
You don't have to target you. It's got
I know. I don't know what to do. Take
I need to find you guys.
I would change the card.
We all said because they're close.
Sounds like a attack on white. Sounds like attack on white.
Oh my god, they turned on each other.
There's another guy. Another attack guy, right? Zero. And here's another attack on white. Okay, take the card.
I hope you guys just keep it happy. Just 6 or 6.
Think about it. You don't know that much of your cloud. You don't know how to use it. And you really can't like it. And you're attacking. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Attack black.
You're wrong. It's set. You're not target.
I don't know what loyalty you have to block.
I'm just so good at magician. I can just like reach out and do
Probably be worse.
She's not playing a team up at all.
it looks like it could be double hunting in this battle. Taking all that team attack on blue. It's like blue. You want to make some fight?
Come on, guys. Ready? Here. Put your card. Put your card. Put your card. You want to do a team check? Oh, where's the team? You're the only one doing team attack and no one else doing it. Think about it. Yeah. This is a very, very bad
My should like 3 minutes.
If somebody else calls a team attack, it's like next one. I'm not making any promises. I'm just saying that won't be. Defending is actually the worst. Yeah, so I'll do that. I'm going to take my shots. Thank you very much. But it's not in the rules. Okay, so you can't do it. Okay, that one good. Pick up your card back and start it again. I think this time we should attack him because he would shoot at the cost and attack me. Why would it take me? I don't like it.
Yes. When you finish that game,
What the fuck are you doing? Stop pulling together, man. So with him, team attack. I mean, wow, public opinion, but you have to and then
I was hoping you would.
so the pattern was broken.
So they can't just choose to not share the video.
last one together.
I'm happy with purple.
I haven't.
And we both make mistakes with cards. Just to clarify, we have on that.
want to be able to but then the note had to be encrypted. You have to encrypt it before you send it.
Okay, one second.
Alright, I think we might wrap up to end this part of the game. So, thank you.
Alright, we're going to talk about analysing Sissyfight a bit now, and talk about what's fun about it, if anything. Because a lot of you have had some arguments, I think.
Alright, so what parts of Sissyfight did you like?
Mind games.
Mind games? Can you elaborate? Like what kind of mind games?
What you do is just tell somebody that you're going to attack them, and they attack somebody else, and then you analyse. Well, it's easy to analyse once you get that to it. It's pretty important. You can use game theory to decide what exactly yes or actually, and try to get somebody what actually.
Would you say the game encourages being a hypocrite?
I wouldn't call it a hypocrite so much lying your ass off.
Yes. Okay. Lying your ass off is a good term for it. Cool. All right. So, what else do you like about the game besides mind games? Or was mind games it?
Are there different kinds of fun in there?
Yeah. Suspense.
Flip the cards.
Right. So there's a build up of like, ooh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Other kinds of. What the word betrayal? Does the word betrayal make sense in this game? Yeah. It ties in well with lying your ass off, but it's especially painful if you all say, let's all team up on blue player, and then no one does. Yeah. So, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of fun that can come out of Sissyfight. So there's plotting, there's backstabbing, betrayal. There's also planning and teamwork. I heard a lot of people saying, well, we should all team up and take out Green, because Green, if we don't, then Green is going to win the game in the next round. So people working out how they're going to approach the next part of the game.
So going back to the mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics that we talked about earlier, Sissyfight's mechanics are actually really quite simple. It really only has 3 specific things that are mechanics. The first one is simultaneous reveal, so everyone shows their cards at the same time. It's very simple. The other one is public communication, and then there's basically hit points. And that's really it as far as mechanics go.
However, despite the fact that we have really, really simple mechanics, we get betrayal and negotiation and teamwork. So how do we get from these mechanics to these aesthetics? Because a game rule cannot make you feel betrayed.
Not by itself, anyway.
Not by itself. And we need dynamics for that to happen. Here's one that we've identified in the game Sissyfight. It's called the Scourge effect. You have one player becoming a clear leader, and as soon as our players realize this, they all play team attack on that guy, taking him out of the game almost at once. So you have cases where you've got a player who's about to win the game and is feeling really good, but also knows that they're out of the game next round, no matter how many times they try and play defend. Of course, once that happens, then with no clear target, this teamwork that formed in response to this player breaks down, and we go back to chaos and anarchy. Another one Parashok about
is player observation. So if you notice what's actually in play, because there's so few cards, you can kind of figure out what people are doing while watching their hand. And that's definitely a dynamic that's present in Sissyfight, because many people over here were basically looking at what people were going to play. They're definitely going to play that again because they just put the same cards they did last time down. So once you start playing, you can figure out what's going on fairly quickly.
There are more, and you can spend a long time finding more and more kinds of dynamics in Sissyfight, but we'll leave that for now. Now, a question for you. Does this game actually feel like a playground fight?
Probably not.
Not particularly.
Not really? No? Okay. All right. How could it do better? Also, what other kinds of themes could this game simulate? So,
I'll let that sit in your head for a second, because the next part of this exercise is we're going to adapt the game Sissyfight 3000 into another game of your design. You're going to make your own game based on this. What I want you to do is this. Think up, write down as many different themes as you can, without discussing with others, just think them up, write them down, work in silence, and then stop after about a minute and a half. So this is just raw, unstructured brainstorming. Come up with a whole bunch of ideas. No idea is too dumb.
No idea?
No idea. Literally, I once saw a game made based on this called Barnyard Death Cult. You know, no idea. That was okay. Fine, my game.
Where's the pen in your CompCon bag?
Yes.
I'm looking for a pen.
That's all right. Just start writing.
The same, essentially limited to the same mechanics.
What ideas? Any idea that you think might make sense with this doesn't have to be like a game that you can apply the same rules to. Just anything you can think of. You know, astronauts on a leaking spaceship.
Yeah, we got like astronauts on a leaking spaceship, nuclear war, people on a sinking boat, things like that.
Yeah, people in a kitchen. You know, yeah. Okay, so in about 90 seconds we'll not stop. So just write them all down as fast as you can, one after the other. We'll stop at 15 seconds. All right, stop writing. All right. Now what I want you to do, and also just because we've got like smaller people here and larger people here, I have one of you just a volunteer that can come join this table. Did you volunteer?
This is one of those game dynamics things.
Yes.
I should Sissyfight it out.
Oh, alright, just because I want to keep the table mostly even.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Alright, here's what you can do now. Keep the time to the next slide. Okay, here's what you do now. In your group that is on your table, I want you to look at all of the different ideas that you wrote down and pick the best one. Okay, so discuss among yourselves. Pick the one that you want to make a game based on.
What usually helps is if you group ideas that are similar together and then knock them out or like going together, and that helps. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
Political influence. So you're essentially using all of the dirty tricks to know about something to get rid of them. So
So at precisely 3:15, I will get you to have chosen your. So you must decide by 3:15.
Too much time.
No, sorry. 12 past, not 3:15.
It's the last one. The fact that it's
One minute to choose what kind of game you're making.
So I guess the two things American
we need to make it. If you want to get it, it's the same game. Just done. Oh, right. I think we're fitting within the rules similar enough that we don't have to change the entire game. Yes. It's not like the giant fight.
With this kind of.
That's what I was thinking. They were describing this game.
So I'm about to point to each one of you and ask you what you've decided.
in a sense, you need to
Anyone for And now we have an even vote. We have an even vote. Positive as well. This is like this red line. Feels like a got votes for red line. Red line wins. Congratulations. We have to choose something.
How do you think about how the resources work?
I'm always well, you know what?
No, I mean the resources.
It was possible that we would have came back.
We're currently on Desert Island for promotion.
Alright, well, we're going to do again about Desert Island.
Stranded. It's going to be a jungle. It's just making we're making
Alright.
So, Steve, very keen on finding other cool.
Alright.
Okay, if I can have your attention, please. We are not actually making changes to rules yet, because that happens, well, now. Here's what we can do now. We have a team here doing a game about desert islands. You guys are doing a game of politics. You guys are a bunch of kings feuding with each other. And over there is a game about human sacrifice. What I want you all to do on your tables is start by... Don't make any changes to the rules of the game yet. Start by making a skinned version of the game. So think about who are the players. In Sissyfight, it was a bunch of little kids. But in a game of human sacrifice, what do you represent? What does each player represent? What are the actions? Solo attack can be renamed. So what's it going to mean?
The best way to start doing it is to play the game exactly as it was before, but just think about the new thing.
Yeah.
Exactly the same rules as before. You can reduce your dollars down to like 2, just so the game ends really quickly, and then test it, and then you'll actually start figuring out what actually needs to change by doing that.
Yeah.
And then just keep playing really quick short rounds and change your game, and then you can slowly actually start changing the rules.
Yeah. So just start by playing one short round, but with everything renamed.
You'll be tempted to start playing by changing the rules, but you'll just follow them.
Yeah. Okay, so play one quick game right now. And we're going to keep going until about 3:40, and then I have to stop and discuss where we're going.
Solo attack is
I'm thinking what this is. It's not rational, like how much energy you've got left. I think it's big things how much you rebuild these activities. Well, yeah, it could be the style. This is how long you've got.
As the MP
Are we losing one in respect?
That means so a solo attack. Maybe those should like well, you see, change. You can't
with surviving very, very, very limited kill off our other islands.
Alright,
What's solo attack?
Solo attack is so playing in right now. So what are you doing? I'm sorry. That's Once you start playing your game and you have a feel for how the game plays, you rename stuff. Make one change to the rules and see how that works. Ready? So, play your game, see how it feels, just make a rule change.
You got it.
And he wants to defend Robbie. Yes. So nothing happens to me. Stop defending me. L2P.
So as in, if I was someone back here, I
So I lose one, you lose one.
People are going to be more aggressive.
Okay, now again.
And that's what the bad thing is. So we have different playstations. Anyone else? Do you want to join me on we can win together. Win party 2013. You defended, so you
Okay, guys. Oh, there's three of us. You'd like to join me in destroying this player? Ready? Oh no, I see it's green.
It is slowly building this
So I'm down to one, you're down to one, and you've got two. I've got one. Three. Would you like to join me in destroying this? I'm a politician. It's the name of the game. It's noise from that, but it's everything. Let's see what that it's a nice rhyming slogan. I'm a politician. Alrighty. They will win. So we need to. We have to play. People mind now. Let's bring them all together.
I think if you also attack each other,
Yes.
Okay, and here's where, so the neither of us get moved. Yeah, we round down. I was trying to say, he has to lose the field, as in he loses so dumb.
That means that someone's going to see you sending a message to someone. So well, it makes sense. Just so let's go on this two double packs.
It makes sense.
The same thing applies.
What kind of things happen? The mechanic problem with that. Green.
So I wrote this message and gave it to him. Can I forward it? You can't forward it. You can't give him the message, but you can send it. Someone else might pay for it, you can say that way you can talk about it. We swap and she replies on go out and the glory. That's probably common again.
Disposing my chances playing for another.
Right. It's got a few things, but I think it's on the back. This is going to be super we did technically have to make one, but had to deal with a situation where if there was like 3 to be split across 2 people, it was like a mystery. Yeah, it was different. Defend I was targeted. I wasn't
Aside physically, what emotion I have to use? You lost it. Not making you mad. When I got desperation, I think one more emotion. So you got
I agree with your message.
I assume that thought hell when you it's like a scene.
Ready?
It solves that back.
I don't know anything. Oh, yeah, fine. So you're
I'm fine.
So wait,
Alright, so now it's just like 4.
Again, maybe
I'm trying to think of some way to. Does it feel like backstabbing going on politics at the moment, kind of? And you're happy about it. It's everything you buy. So what do you mean by glass? That's when the attack works. When the attack works, that is a photo card. Okay, so
I don't think you get all of it.
the message right
You pretty much just won the game. You couldn't lose that much. I think you probably just won, maybe. I think you won.
But I think they penalise the defending when no one's attacking.
It's good. Yeah. So, like, you want to bring yourself together.
After rounds and at the end, that's
But it's going to affect
ready to show? That would be. How do I defend against it? So when did you?
I like it. you're a solo attack spy.
When you team up together,
You're propaganda. So you lose one, you do nothing, you don't. How do you do something? No, I'm not even bothered to see it. Keep it up on here. He's an easier target. The team attack is just. Okay, so you may go on how can you not like that? I thought he was the well, it's actually the trade. So the only constraint is right now.
All right. So, over the last hour and a half, we have been learning about how games work and how to make changes to games. And at the end of this, you've come up with basically a game that's based on Sissyfight that has a couple of rule changes that suit your theme. I'm going to go past each one of these tables, and I'll get you to pick one person to talk about what your theme was and remind everybody, and then talk about how you change the rules of the game, and also how that works. Now, it's okay if it didn't work, that's fine. What's important is you talk about what you tried and how it affected the game itself. So I think we'll start with just from my left here. So what was your game and how did it work?
We did a desert island. You're all trapped on a desert island and are slowly dying. So the main sort of feeling we found there was desperation. The major change we made was instead of you just losing your food, the person who took it from you actually gets it. So with a solo attack, instead of you losing one food, if I solo attack, I would gain one food from you.
Did it work?
It did actually feel quite desperate.
Cool.
Yeah. The changes we started to work on, the next changes, one was going to be you lose a food every turn regardless, because you're eating it.
Right.
And then we were trying to work out some way of, because this would slowly build up into a pool of food that no one can touch, is that, we're trying to work out some way that if for some reason everyone agreed to work together, you would get one food back because you all, found a bunch of bananas or something growing on the island. We couldn't quite work out how that would work yet mechanically.
There's a mole in there somewhere, but I can't quite figure it out. Cool, alright, that's awesome. Alright, these guys did a political one?
Yeah, we changed our game to be more of a kind of political backstabbing type, subterfuge, espionage type game. So instead of kind of just all public speaking, like the game originally had, you could send one kind of letter to one player per turn, but then of course there was the risk in that they could forward that message on to someone else and then they would know that you were targeting such and such. So this led to some pretty frantic moments where I would send a message to Blue saying to attack Yellow, Yellow would send a message to me telling me to attack Blue, and I would agree with him but then actually attack him. So it kind of led to a whole kind of air of just no one trusting anyone whatsoever. So we managed to destroy some friendships in the process.
Good.
It worked pretty well in the end.
Alright, so it really felt like a big game of politics. Cool. Nice. Alright, this team, what was your theme?
It's sort of like Kingdom Dominions, where every individual is sort of a king, and the idea is to destroy everyone else.
Okay.
We didn't really get around to much changes, maybe thematic changes.
Okay, sure.
But we did consider the idea of instead of destroying stuff, actually gaining it instead. But as the other thing, we also ran into issues about to do with the team attacks and such.
Okay, cool. And the last, table here. What was your theme?
Well, the theme was human sacrifice. Eventually, basically the players became gods and the currency became followers. And the idea became to sacrifice other gods' followers to yourself. You always became But the rule change we actually implemented was the defense became an attack.
Yeah.
Right. If somebody defends and you just usually it's a solo attack them, then nothing really happens because they defend runs down, yada yada yada. But if you think that they're going to defend, you can defend them as well. And if still nobody attacks them, they lose the one for the 1 point which they lose from their own defense, and the point from your defense as well.
Basically, that springs from allowing defense of targets aside from no target.
Right.
So you usually reflect attacks and then.
So if you think someone's going to defend, you defend them as well, and that means they lose 2 as long as no one else attacks them.
We were arbitrarily through trying to see how it would work each world setting where it the original change to mechanics that we tried was the idea of usually sacrificing our followers and then the first person to die or followers to sacrifice one, but that didn't really work out. Basically, ended up all defending ourselves.
Yeah, until everybody ended at the same time. Alright, cool. Alright, so this is pretty much the end of our workshop. Thank you all so very much for coming along. You will find a little bit more of this up on our website. You'll find it at blog.secretlab.com.au. If you're interested in this kind of thing and you can get to the United States, then I really strongly recommend that you attend the Game Developers Conference, which is held in San Francisco, because they do a 2-day version of this workshop. And basically you get a lot more time to explore your ideas. So, thank you very much. Find us on Twitter, and I hope you had a good time.